And I'm Emma Dollamere. Welcome to Newswatch. A red flag warning remains in effect for a majority of southeast Ohio. According to the National Weather Service, the warning is due to a mix of unseasonably warm temperatures and a dry air mass resulting in low relative humidity along with strong southern winds.
Newswatch forecaster Peyton Simchak joins us to tell us more about what is a red flag warning and what it means. Good evening, Peyton.
Good evening, guys. Yeah, we've been experiencing some really dry and warm and windy conditions around here recently, and that has been creating this elevated fire ignition, which means that we're going to be experiencing this higher intensity of fire risk around here. So that means if a fire does develop outside, it's going to spread a lot more, so we should be avoiding any sort of outdoor burning right now. But we're going to take a look at the map just here in a second. I'll show you where exactly it's covering in the area. It's covering parts of Athens, it's covering parts of northern Kentucky, and parts of eastern Indiana. And it's expected to continue into tomorrow, which I'll talk a little bit more about in my full weather forecast. But right now, as you can see here in the Athens area, it is covering here in Athens and in our surrounding locations right now. And this is a lot because, as you can see here, we're at a very low percentage of humidity right now. Usually when we're in the low 20s and we hit the teens, that means we are experiencing some really dry conditions. And it is 82 degrees right now, and we had some cloudy skies earlier, but it's clear right now. As we take a look at the local radar, like I said, dry across the board here in Athens, no rainfall today and for the majority of our area here. But as we take a look at our local temperatures, we are looking at some low 80s to some mid 80s. So again, some really warm temperatures, but I'll talk more about that in my full weather forecast.
Thank you, Peyton. 2 wildfires are burning in West Virginia near the state's mountainous border with Virginia. At least 1,500 acres are scorched in Pendleton County due to the Hidden Valley fire. It's been a blowing smoke over the town of Franklin, although firefighters said Wednesday night it's largely contained. Officials say the nearby smoke hole fire is fully contained after burning at least 83 acres. The Ohio River's top country's the conservation advocacy organization American Rivers calls on Congress to make the Ohio River a federally protected water system. Restoration is needed because the river could be a key freshwater source for other areas of the country struggling with droughts and water scarcity like the West and Southwest. Threats include climate change, toxins from East Palestine's train derailment, and pollution from nearby industries. Currently, the river supplies 5 million people with drinking water and houses over 150 species of fish.
A Wellsburg, West Virginia man has admitted to stealing $150,000 from the Bethany Pike Volunteer Fire Department. Daniel Keener, the department's former treasurer, pled guilty in federal court to 1 count of wire fraud. Keener admitted to diverting funds from the department's bank accounts for its personal use over a 5-year period. The stolen funds were used to purchase concert tickets, make payments on personal credit cards, pay for a family member's educational expenses, and to purchase jewelry. Keener is facing up to 20 years in federal prison, and he may pay $150,000 in restitution. A man charged with murder has been sentenced in Meigs County. 41-year-old Wayne Lieb Jr. of Racine was sentenced to life in prison without parole for a charge of aggravated murder. The conviction stems from the death of Dwayne Quayles, who was shot and killed in his Pomeroy home. Another murder investigation also points to Lieb as the primary suspect. 34-year-old Jason Pierce of Racine was found with multiple gunshots and stab wounds in a Mason home. Lieb is currently facing a first-degree murder charge in that case. Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost is leading a coalition of 15 attorneys general urging the U.S. Court of Appeals to affirm states' authority to remove local prosecutors who refuse to put the law ahead of their politics. In a brief filed today, the coalition maintains that states have a right to defend their constitutions against local prosecutors who, by pledging not to enforce laws they dislike, wield a veto power over lawfully enacted legislation. The attorneys general say the First Amendment First Speech Clause does not limit states' ability to remove prosecutors who refuse to do their jobs.
The state constitution could become harder to amend thanks to the Ohio Senate Republicans passing a resolution yesterday. Republicans the Senate voted in favor of requiring the state to have a 60% vote for enacting proposed amendments. Currently, a simple majority of 50% plus one is needed. Separate legislation would create a special August election only for this issue. Next, the Ohio House must take both the resolution and election bill. The resolution needs support from the supermajority to pass. Coming up after the break, parents of a 6-year-old in North Carolina speak out after their daughter is mistakenly shot. And extreme weather sweeps across the nation. These stories and more when Newswatch returns.
We've been experiencing these dry and warm conditions lately, but how long should we expect that to continue? Find out in my full weather forecast.
When I think about how we get to zero carbon electricity, you need a lot of different types of technologies all playing together.
I think it's really important, after raising concern about climate change for so long, to give people some idea where the levers are to change it.
We have technologies today that we can use to actually bring down emissions, make our communities healthier. We don't need to wait for some massive breakthrough. We have solutions.
We go straight to the bottom line in the form of green technology. Heating and cooling that can reduce a building's fossil fuel usage by 70%.
There's enough offshore wind capacity to power the country 4 times over.
This is something that just a few years ago was considered impossible.
PBS dares to cover the things that are important, and given the stakes, I'm convinced that people can make the effective change.
In 2013, the Caribbean Sea gave up an extraordinary secret.
It's just humongous.
An uncharted, undiscovered coral reef.
It's like a medieval fortress.
But the challenge was how to keep this underwater Eden safe.
I realized we needed to research it, but we needed to keep it quiet.
It's a tantalizing treasure that will raise hopes for the survival of coral reefs everywhere.
Wednesday at 8 on WOUB.
People ask, what was the American strategy? The Americans did not have a strategy for Afghanistan.
Drawing on years of reporting from both sides of the war.
You set off a car bomb, it's going to kill innocent civilians.
This was fighting.
It wasn't clear they had the patience or the understanding.
We asked an enormous amount of those on the ground in particular.
Missteps and miscalculations.
Why did we fail in our mission, and who was responsible?
Part 3 premieres Tuesday, April 25th, 10, 9 Central, only on PBS.
More young people caught in the crossfire after apparent mistakes. This time, a young victim left to wonder why a neighbor shot her and her father as she played in the front yard of her home.
Meanwhile, a father in New York speaks about the man who allegedly killed his daughter for just turning down the wrong driveway. Gloria Pazmino has the latest.
Why did you shoot my daddy and me?
It happened again. A manhunt is underway in North Carolina after a 6-year-old and her father were seriously injured when a neighbor allegedly opened fire after a basketball accidentally rolled into his yard.
He looked at my husband dead in the face and he said, "I'm gonna kill you."
The young victim's cheek still shows the injuries. Her father shot through the back as he tried to protect children from the bullets. Police say the suspect is Robert Louis Singletary. The 24-year-old is considered armed and dangerous. The North Carolina incident is the 4th time just in the last week that an ordinary mistake led to young people being shot. In Kansas City, authorities say a 16-year-old was shot after ringing the wrong doorbell. In Texas, 2 teenage cheerleaders are recovering after approaching the wrong car in a grocery store parking lot.
It's impossible to imagine. It kind of makes you question your safety on just doing everyday routine things.
And in rural upstate New York, a 20-year-old was killed after she and her friends turned into the wrong driveway. The victim's father speaking out this week after the suspect was denied bail.
For this man to sit on his porch and fire at a car with no threat is just angers me so badly.
I'm Gloria Pazmino reporting. A
peaceful protest in Akron, Ohio turned violent overnight. City's officials say police dispensed tear gas after about 150 people filled a residential street and threw plastic water bottles at officers. They are protesting the police shooting of Jalen Walker, who was unarmed at the time he was killed last year. On Monday, a grand jury declined to indict the 8 officers involved in Walker's death. Besides tear gas, police used pepper spray. Several children were in the crowd.
The Senate votes to uphold a new Veterans Affairs rule regarding abortion. Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville introduced a resolution to overturn a rule that ensures veterans can get abortions if the health or the life of the mother is in danger, and when the pregnancy is a result of a rape or incest. The resolution failed, but if it had passed, President Joe Biden vowed to veto it. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia joined Republicans in voting for the resolution. Manchin says if the president wants to protect abortion rights, he needs thorough legislation.
If this is to be changed, it should be voted upon. If the legislation that the president wants to do in this administration, then bring it before a piece of legislation. Let's go through the process. To me, that would be the proper way to do it. And see if the public supports that and supports those of us who represent our public in what decisions we make.
Republican Senators Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Morzowski of Alaska voted against the resolution with the other Democrats. The Supreme Court is deliberating on a critical abortion case tomorrow. The case causing concern among healthcare providers, patients, and pharmaceutical companies alike over what the long-term implications of the forthcoming ruling could be. Mike Valerio has the latest.
Confusion for care providers.
This is like, honestly, a game of hockey where you have no idea where the puck is.
As the Supreme Court weighs a decision on access to the abortion medication mifepristone. On Wednesday, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito gave the court more time to consider the issue, extending a temporary hold on an order by a federal judge in Texas that would block access to the drug.
17 states in the District of Columbia have been ordered to keep mifepristone access as it is, and a judge who purported to issue a nationwide injunction telling the FDA to change the way that mifepristone is being administered. And so you do have a conflict, which is why the Supreme Court definitely needs to do something about it.
The reason for that extension is unclear, as is the path the High Court will take, but the decisions the justices could make will have wide-ranging implications beyond if and when mifepristone can be used. One question at issue, can a single judge or panel overrule the FDA? The precedent set by the ruling could create chaos in the pharmaceutical industry and threaten the regulatory system that approves new treatments. This is causing concern within the medical community.
This case is a challenge to how we practice medicine as healthcare providers.
And on both sides of the aisle in Washington.
They basically have said this, the last two judges, hey, guess what? We know better than the FDA.
It could be this drug today, and who knows what the next one might be.
I'm Mike Valerio reporting.
Now, we almost reached record high temperatures here in Athens today. As you can see here, we reached a temperature high of 87 degrees and a low of 56. So it was cooler this morning, but needless to say, it warmed up quite a bit as the afternoon rolled in. And it was mostly cloudy, but as we take a look here, as you can see here in the Athens area and surrounding locations, we are in a red flag warning right now, which means we are at a high risk of fire intensity because of these dry, warm, windy conditions and our very low percentage of humidity. We are in the teens right now, and usually when it's in the low 20s and teens, that means we are experiencing some dry conditions, and these conditions are primed to continue into tomorrow, but they will not be as intense. In fact, they're just about to hit fire danger criteria. Now again, we've been seeing dry conditions. As you can see here in Athens, we haven't seen any rainfall. We have seen a little bit of some light precipitation to the west of us in the Wilmington area today, but across the board for the majority we have not seen any precipitation. But as we take a look at a wider scale, we do have some light to medium to heavy rainfall to the west of us, but again, nothing here in Athens right now. That's going to continue into our evening. It's going to be a partly cloudy night with an overnight low of 56, so it's going to drop down a bit, but it's going to warm up right back up tomorrow. We're going to have a temperature high of 82 and a low of 47. Now, as you can see here, we do have a chance of thunderstorms tomorrow, and like I said, these dry conditions are going to continue into the afternoon, but they're going to dissipate tomorrow, as you can see here, when this cold front starts moving into our area, and it's going to start to pass through tomorrow. tomorrow night, and that's going to be bringing some scattered showers. And as going into Saturday, it's going to bring some elevated intensity. We're seeing some light to heavy rainfall and some showers hitting the majority of our area, as you can see here. And we're going to be seeing some isolated thunderstorms as well. So that means some of our area is going to get hit with thunderstorms and some will not be as intense. And we're going to have a high of 61 and a low of 35. So it's going to drop down quite a bit. But as we move into Sunday here, it's going to be mostly cloudy with a high of 54 and a low of 31. So it's going to drop down a bit again. And as we move into the work week next week, we're going to still be in that brief break of precipitation here. It's going to be a partly sunny day, the high of 59, a low of 32. And the same trend goes for Tuesday. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but we do have a possibility of some frost at the beginning of next week. So that could be detrimental to our early green up, which meaning our new beginning of our plant cycle here. But as we move into Wednesday, this rain's going to come back again with a high of 63, and the same goes for Thursday, another rainy day. But as of right now, just take precaution to this red flag warning we're in.
Thanks, Peyton. The rain heading our way this weekend leaves behind a path of destruction in the west. Some 50 million people are under severe weather alerts today from Wisconsin south to Texas. The same front delivered a deadly blow to Oklahoma yesterday, with at least 3 deaths reported in that state. Laura Aguirre has more.
Woo! Lightning, hail, and tornadoes carved a lethal path across parts of the Panhandle State Wednesday.
Look at the winds flowing into the tornado. Oh, big power flash. It's hitting Cole right now.
The small town of Cole, with around 600 people, was hit head-on. Search, rescue, and recovery teams are at work Thursday. The storm blamed for at least 2 deaths there.
The tornado is getting stronger right back over here to the left. It's moving extremely slowly.
Large, damaging hail was reported in several areas, hitting one news chopper in flight.
I have no windshield. The helicopter's beat up. We are trying to make it to Pauls Valley and land.
That crew landed safely as the severe weather rolled east.
When it finally calmed all the way down, we came outside and yeah, my car is literally not where I left it.
Thought it wasn't too bad and then saw the whole roof on our backyard thing was gone, and I knew it was a lot worse.
Amid the devastation in Shawnee were several buildings on the campus of Oklahoma Baptist University, including some student apartment units and the school's chapel.
Buildings can be rebuilt. What I'm very happy to report is we have no reported injuries and no reported fatalities. And, where I'm from, that's kind of hallelujah territory.
Forecasters are tracking the dangerous front through the Mississippi and Ohio valleys through Friday. I'm Laura Aguirre reporting.
The CDC releases new guidelines for COVID boosters. That story's still ahead. And to stay up to date on the latest from Newswatch, check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
People ask, what was the American strategy? The Americans did not have a strategy for Afghanistan.
Drawing on years of reporting from both sides of the war.
You set off a car bomb, it's going to kill innocent civilians.
This was fighting.
It wasn't clear they had the patience or the understanding.
We asked an enormous amount of those on the ground in particular.
Missteps and miscalculations.
Why did we fail on our mission, and who was responsible?
Part 3 premieres Tuesday, April 25th, 9 Central, only on PBS.
Historical symbols have a lot to say about who we were and who we have become as a people in this country. But our collective memory is shaped by who is doing the history telling.
And I just go like that, and the ball would go all the way over the green monster. Sylvester Stallone, and I'm in his shoes.
At a time when America has become increasingly divided, it's important to consider the things that connect us.
Wednesday at 10 on WOUB.
Next time on Antiques Roadshow, will these treasures bring highs or lows?
Beneath the ring guard, it says Yard. And Yard was the jeweler to the Rockefellers.
No way.
Yes, seriously.
Oh, I got a little chill.
Woo.
I brought a set of Pokemon cards. Like most 90s babies, I fell into the craze.
Watch on Antiques Roadshow, next time from Shelburne Museum in Vermont.
Monday at 8 on WOUB.
The Chelsea movement had a life of its own.
The struggle for Chelsea's freedom is also a struggle of an entire people.
After all these years, I finally had the chance to say I'm innocent.
I was not an angel on her side.
At the same time, I was not the devil.
Free Chol Soo Lee, Monday, April 24th at 10, 9 Central on Independent Lens.
Less than 1 in 5 eligible Americans have gotten the recommended updated COVID-19 vaccine, but additional doses of the bivalent booster have been given the green light for some adults by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and now the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Mandy Gaither breaks down the new guidance and what it means for you.
Across the U.S., COVID-19 cases, deaths, and hospitalizations continue to trend down, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
One of the reasons why things are so much better now than where they were a year or two ago is because almost everybody now has some level of protection.
Dr. Frank Esper with Cleveland Clinic says the protection is either through a prior infection or vaccines, but early data suggests protection has started to wane from the bivalent booster, which health experts say protects against the original strain of the COVID-19 virus, Omicron, and its spinoffs. That's why the FDA has updated its guidance for the most vulnerable to the disease, allowing people 65 and older to get an additional dose of the Pfizer or Moderna bivalent vaccines now, as long as it's been 4 months since their last one. And most people with certain degrees of immunocompromise can get a second dose of a bivalent vaccine at least 2 months after the last one.
What we're trying to do with our vaccination response is to make sure that everybody's antibody levels, remain protective so that they can fight off the infection.
For immunocompromised children ages 6 months through 4 years, eligibility for an additional bivalent vaccine will depend on the vaccine previously received, so talk to a doctor. Another big change is that most unvaccinated people may now receive a single dose of a bivalent vaccine rather than multiple doses of the original single-strain vaccines. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
For everyone not covered by today's changes, the FDA says it intends to make decisions about future vaccinations in June.
Numerous economic indicators are released today, including weekly jobless claims and mortgage rates. This is President Joe Biden and House Speaker's debt ceiling. John Lawrence reports.
As the U.S. economy moves forward in the post-pandemic era,
recession risks are high and rising, probably pretty close to even over the next year or two.
More skirmishes in the battle over the U.S.'s debt ceiling.
President Biden and Senator Schumer have no right to play politics with the debt calling. Their extreme positions risk provoking the very crisis they claim to want to avoid.
During a speech in Maryland Wednesday, President Joe Biden said the U.S. defaulting on the national debt would be a big mistake.
It would mean cuts in Social Security and Medicare, higher interest rates for things like credit cards, car loans, mortgages.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy released the Limit, Save, Grow Act of 2023 that returns discretionary spending to 2022 levels and limits spending growth to 1% per year over the next 10 years.
House Republicans are taking action to lift the debt limit, to limit government spending, save taxpayers money, and grow the economy.
The White House criticized the proposal, saying a debt ceiling hike shouldn't be linked to a spending bill, just as it wasn't during 3 such votes in the Trump administration.
They want to increase costs for hardworking families, take food assistance and health care away from millions of Americans.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
The Congressional Budget Office says if the debt ceiling isn't raised, the federal government may default on the nation's debt sometime between July and September.
More new businesses are popping up across Ohio, according to the Ohio Secretary of State office. Secretary of State Frank LaRose announces 18,881 new business filings from last month. The first quarter of 2023 is the highest new business creation the state's ever seen, with a total of 51,881 new business filings. LaRose correlates the significant growth to, quote, the resilience of Ohio's entrepreneurial spirit. He says this also reinforces pro-growth policies that help make Ohio an attractive area for doing business. When we return, Variant Magazine hosts its first ever fashion show. Here's a look at what's coming up tonight on your public television station.
Historical symbols have a lot to say about who we were and who we have become as a people in this country. But our collective memory is shaped by who is doing the history telling.
And I just go like that, and the ball would go all the way over the green monster. Sylvester Stallone, and I'm in his shoes.
At a time when America has become increasingly divided, it's important to consider the things that connect us.
Wednesday at 10 on WOUB.
People ask, what was the American strategy? The Americans did not have a strategy for Afghanistan.
Drawing on years of reporting from both sides of the war.
You set off a car bomb, it's going to kill innocent civilians.
This was fighting.
It wasn't clear they had the patience or the understanding.
We asked an enormous amount of those on the ground in particular.
Missteps and miscalculations.
Why did we fail in our mission, and who was responsible?
Part 3 premieres Tuesday, April 25th, 10, 9 Central, only on PBS.
When I think about how we get to zero carbon electricity, you need a lot of different types of technologies all playing together.
I think it's really important, after raising concern about climate change for so long, to give people some idea where the levers are to change it.
We have technologies today that we can use to actually bring down emissions, make our communities healthier. We don't need to wait for some massive breakthrough. We have solutions.
We go straight to the bottom line in the form of green technology. Heating and cooling, that can reduce a building's fossil fuel usage by 70%.
There's enough offshore wind capacity to power the country 4 times over.
This is something that just a few years ago was considered impossible.
PBS dares to cover the things that are important, and given the stakes, I'm convinced that people can make the effective change.
Finally tonight, an evening filled with fashion, music, and friendship. Variant magazine held their first ever spring fashion show yesterday in Galbraith Chapel on College Green. The community event sold out, filling the pews with over 150 people. The student organization provided a creative platform for Ohio-based designers and artists ranging from 11 to 48-year-olds to showcase their art. One of those designers, Courtney Kessel, working as the assistant director of experiential learning at Ohio University, says her clothing designs are as old as the models.
I got so many compliments on the clothes. It was so much fun to sort of have a totally different generation of people seeing and wearing the clothes. And it's fun that they still held up.
The Variant started planning the show in February, wanting to give the designers and artists enough time to plan and create their looks. The student organization hopes to continue the community event again next year.
And tonight we are still in this red flag warning. It's expected to continue until 8 o'clock tonight, so we are still in that high risk of fire intensity. But as we take a look at our evening tonight, we're going to have an overnight low of 56, and it's going to be partly cloudy. But as we take a look at tomorrow, it's going to warm back up to a temperature high of 82 and a low of 47, and we should be expecting some storms and some showers later on after late to afternoon tomorrow. As we take a look at our end of the weekend here and into next week, it's going to be mostly cloudy on Sunday, so it's going to clear up a bit, and we're going to reach a brief precipitation break on Monday and Tuesday next week, so it's going to clear up a little bit. And as we move into the rest of next week, we're going to be seeing some more seasonable temperatures, so a little bit above what we are seeing right now. But I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited for it to finally clear up after we have kind of a rainy weekend. But what else are we supposed to expect in the spring, right?
Right. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for all of us here at Newswatch. I'm Emma Dollamere.
And I'm Juliana Colant. Stay tuned for the PBS NewsHour coming up next, and everybody have a great night.